Okay, so we are going to now look at the relationship between the frequency of a string, of a vibrating string, and the nature of the string. And there are three natures that we want to look at. The first one is the length of the string. The second one is the tension. Okay, how taut it is, the tension on the string. And the third one is the mass per unit length of the string. Okay, so basically it's just about how long is the string, what's the tension on the string, and what's the mass of the string, what's the thickness. That's what we mean by per unit length. What's the thickness of the string. Okay, so usually this is obtained from an experiment, and the instrument that we use for that experiment is called a sonometer. Okay, it's called a sonometer. Okay, a sonometer is an instrument with which the frequency of a note produced by a plug string can be studied. Just that's basically what a sonometer is. Okay, so move down straight to that relationship now. From the use of a sonometer, it has been found that the frequency of a string is directly proportional to 1 over the length. That is a way of saying that it is inversely proportional to the length. That is, the shorter the length, the higher the frequency. Okay, the shorter the length, the higher the frequency. The longer the string is, then the lower the frequency. So that's what we mean, that frequency varies inversely to the length of the string. Another way you also want to put that is to say the shorter the length, then the higher the frequency. Okay, now the tension frequency F is directly proportional to the square root of the tension T. Frequency is directly proportional to the tension. Okay, so what does that mean? It means, okay, just like I've said, frequency varies directly as the square root of the tension on the string. How else do you want to say this? Another way to say this is to say that the higher the tension, the higher the tension, the higher the frequency. The higher the tension, the higher the frequency. And the last one will be that frequency F varies inversely as the square root of the mass per unit length, or it varies inversely as the mass, the thickness of the string. Okay, so frequency varies inversely as the square root of the mass per unit length of the string. Okay, another way to put it is the smaller the mass per unit length, then the higher the frequency. Now, a very good way to visualize this is in a guitar. All right. I happen to play the bass guitar. Okay, the bass guitar, and so I'm going to make this now. If you look at the bass guitar, possibly an acoustic, so you see the E string in a bass guitar. A bass guitar has 4 strings, so you have the E string, which is usually thick, very thick, and the frequency is always low. Okay, it is thick, the frequency is low. That is like, it's the base of the base, like the base of the base. And then following that is usually the A string, which is not as thick as, it's thick anyway, but not as thick as the E string. Then you have the D string, okay, somewhat thick too, and and then you have the G string. The G string is usually very, 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 very small. The G string is usually very, very tiny. But you see, if you pluck the G string, it's the pitch is higher. It has a higher pitch because it's just about the thickness. Okay, it's about the thickness. We're looking at the thickness, we're looking at the length, and we're also looking at the tension. Okay, so now if guitar usually has what is called a fret. Okay, okay, so we have this, that, then that. Okay, so these are my strings. Okay, these are my strings. Yeah, and usually we have what we call a fret that demarcates that. Okay, now if the fret is held somewhere down here, the frequency, the sound it makes has a higher frequency than when it is held down here. Okay, that's because with these frets you are varying the length. Okay, and the longer you go, so it's like when you pick up a guitar and then you're doing from, let's say maybe you start from a fret like this, where you have maybe the E, the note E, the key E, right? And then you're moving E, and then you're moving like do, re, mi, fa. So as you keep going further this down this way, the sound kind of gets deeper and deeper and deeper. Okay, it's lower frequency that it's actually causing that. It's a kind of a lower frequency. It gets getting deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Okay, that's how the length varies. We've talked about the thickness. The thickness is like E, this is key E, this is key A. Okay, this is D, and then this is G. It's the tiniest, and because it's the tiniest, it gives the higher kind of the higher frequency, that kind of thing. So as it has to do with tension, the guitar will always have a kind of a neck. Yeah, I really don't know what they call it, but something. And then you have all the knobs that you should use to tune it out, about all that. Okay, so what you basically use this to do in a guitar is to make these things, the whole of this, either to make it either taut, or to make it, either make it loose, or don't you make it taut, that kind of thing. All right, so now if you tighten it so much, you keep pulling it, and you're like tightening it, you are increasing the tension. You're increasing the tension on the string, and the more you increase the tension on the string, the higher the frequency. Like, and a high frequency will always result to a high pitch. Okay, high frequency will always result to a high pitch, that kind of thing. So that's basically how these 3 qualities, or these 3 features of a string, that's how they relate with the frequency. Okay, now we can join these three together. Okay, we can put them three together, and if we put them three together, we are going to have something that looks quite beautiful and something that looks quite handy too. Okay, if we put them together, we are going to have that the frequency f is equal to 1 over L, the square root of T over M. So that's bringing 1, 2, 3 together. That's bringing 1, 2, 3 together. If we bring 1, 2, and 3 together, we'll have that f is equal to 1 over L, the square root of T over M, where L is the length of the spring or string, okay, and T is the tension on the string, and of course M is the thickness, let's put it that way, of the string. So that is the relationship. Now if we begin to relate it to the whole fundamental first overtone, second overtone thing that we did, so yes, this is actually we've not said that it's equal to that. They are actually it's directly proportional to that. Okay, so when we change the constant of proportionality, we'll have that f is now going to be equal to, and the constant of proportionality k will come in, k over L, the square root of T over M. Okay, so here is just the proportionality sign, k over, and now k has a physical parameter, and it is simply the number of loops, right? The number of loops. You remember our loop thing, the number of loops, or what you may call the mode of vibration. Okay, that's what k is. All right, now if we look at that, remember that for first overtone, for fundamental frequency f naught, don't forget that we have v over 2l, right? V over 2l for the fundamental frequency. Okay, now if that be the case, if we put that here, we're going to have that f will be equal to, that is f naught. So at this point, we're not just looking at the velocity of the wave. Okay, we're not just considering the velocity of the wave. We just generally want to look at the nature of the wave. Okay, the nature of the wave. These things are the features of the wave, or the parameters of the wave, or the nature of the wave. In that order, we'll be saying that f naught is going to be equal to 1, because it's 1, right? 1 over 2l. Remember, 1 over 2l, the square root of T over M. So this would be the fundamental. This will be the equation that we use for the fundamental when we are putting into consideration the nature of, or the of the string. Now the same rule applies going further. The first overtone is going to be, you know, an integer multiple, just 2 times the f naught. So f1 will be equal to 2 f naughts, right? Which is just like saying 1 over L, because you're now saying 2 times 1 over 2L, the square root of T over M, and 2 can go into 2. So we're having 1 over L, the square root of T over M. Okay, so F2 will now be 3F naught, just like we did before. 3F naught is equal to, now multiplying 3 times 1, 3 over 2L, then the square root of T over M. So, and so on and so forth, and we'll continue to move like that until we're able to say, oh, finally we've got to the end. Okay, so this is basically what it is. If you are able to remember some of these key things, okay, if you can, remember that F is equal to K over L, the square root of T over M, where K is actually a constant, the mode of vibration and all that. And what we had just done before this, it's a very long video, so I'm going to put a timestamp to them, such that if you really want to go back to look at what we did before, because you've missed something somewhere, then it's actually going to be very, very easy for you. Okay, on this note, I'll do one more thing, and then we can take one or two example. And what I want to do is just to inform us that if we are still dealing with the nature of the wave, then from everything that we've done here, we can say that V is going to be equal to the square root of T over M. And we came about that by saying, oh, well, let me just do that. Let me just do that aside here to show us how that V is equal to T over M, just in case. Okay, so you remember this? You remember this? Yep. Okay. Now let's assume actually it's an assumption. Let's assume that we are simply taking for a full wavelength. Okay, we are doing this for a full wavelength. We are doing this for a full wavelength, and for a full wavelength, we will have L, and that L is equal to lambda. So for a full wavelength, this can simply become F is equal to K over lambda, because L is equal to lambda, the square root of T over M. Now, if I multiply both sides by lambda, I'm going to have F lambda is equal to K lambda over lambda, the square root of T over M. So lambda can go with lambda, right? So I am going to have that F lambda is equal to K, the square root of T over M. But don't forget that F is equal to V over lambda, which implies that V is equal to F lambda. So that means the whole of this is also V. So if I put V there, is equal to K, the square root of T over M. All right. Now, when K equals 1, I will have this, because this will become 1. I will have that V is equal to T over M. Okay, so this is it. We've been able to deal with the basics. The basics is the vibration of strings. We've been able to look at fundamental frequency, the first overtone, the second overtone, the third overtone, and we have also just tidied up the relationship between frequency and nature of a string. So we are just quickly going to move into solving a few examples, and then we'll talk about some other things, possibly in our next video, where we will look at some other areas, things like open pipes and closed pipes. We're definitely going to look at those things.